What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we got to break down patch 5.07. The public beta entry has released, and there are a ton of buffs and nerfs to characters like Skye, KO, Yoru, and even Reyna. There's a lot we got to talk about and break down. But let's introduce you to our sponsor for this video, LootBoy. LootBoy has over 15 million registered users worldwide, and it lets you unlock credits, skins, and even items for all your favorite games. It can be downloaded for absolutely free on Android, iOS, App Gallery, or even just on your PC, and you can unlock loot coins and use that to open loot packs. Now, what's inside a loot pack? Game credits and skins are some of the many things you could find inside of a loot pack, and there's also premium loot cards that can give you huge rewards like these for Valorant. On top of that, with the chat radar, you're never gonna game alone again, easily able to connect with people that match your playstyle and with all your favorite games. In the premium packs, you can even get gold cards that give you full versions of Steam games or even tons of Steam credits. Well, what are you waiting for? Right now, go download it with code GameLeap09 and you get a free community loot pack with diamonds, loot coins, and much more. What are you waiting for? Go check it out right now in the description down below. Now, first off, let's talk about Skye that is being changed at the public beta entry. And they said this about her, quote, "Guiding Light's destructibility didn't feel like meaningful counterplay, instead overtly punishing when Skye tried to throw them at a long range. By increasing the top end output and rewarding Skye for bending her birds in the right spots, we intend to foster more teamwork and differentiate her Guiding Light from other flashes in the game, especially when compared to duelists." So Guiding Light Flashbang scaling paradigm change. The max flash duration of Skye's Guiding Light, her flash, now scales from 1.25 seconds to 2.25 seconds over a 0.75 second charge up after being cast. Guiding Light can no longer be shot and destroyed. New VFX, UI, and sounds added to communicate new gameplay intent. Not in PBE, unequipped delay out of Guiding Light increased from 0.75 seconds onto 8.5 seconds. So apparently that's going to be added in later on potentially. Now, that is absolutely crazy. And before we actually dig into what this means for the character, understand that Riot is specifically targeting flashes on characters here because they felt there was too much overlap in duelist versus initiator flashes, and they want to have very specific identities that separate the two rather than having all flashes just be flashes. There needs to be a specific difference between the flashes that a duelist is using to maybe secure kills or take an angle and the flashes an initiator is doing to actually accomplish some sort of team-based strategy or info-based strategy. Now, here's the thing about this flash. So the scale up means that if you throw out the flash and pop it right away, it's not gonna blind very much at all. It's only gonna blind for 1.25 seconds. Now, that being said, if you wait the entire almost full second, 0.75 seconds before you pop it, it's gonna potentially blind even more than it did before at 2.25 seconds. That means that when using Skye's flash for a team flash, it's going to actually flash better than before, but using it individually means it's going to be worse. However, the caveat there is that it can't be shot and destroyed anymore. And in a lot of cases, even if you throw it, pop flash it, and only blind someone very, very temporarily, 1.25 seconds, that's still enough for you to get a kill on them. And I think this is going to allow Skye to be more reliable to get information when you're throwing a bird a far distance, or you're trying to use her to set up your teams more properly. But once that unequipped delay gets increased slightly, it's going to be pretty hard for you to actually use Skye as some sort of aggressive playmaker that just does it by herself. You can in a pinch, but she's more suited towards team play than before. Next up, we do gotta talk about KO. And KO said this, quote, "KO's underhanded flash/drive left click has been overperforming relative to other pop flashes. Example, Phoenix Flash or Yoru's Flash. Left overhand throws aren't generating a powerful enough reward for the mastery required to get them to pop in the right place. This tuning weakens the right click when compared to pop flashes from Duelist, with the brief that KO should pay a cost for his versatility. So the underhanded, the right-click flashbang duration decreased from 2 seconds to 1.25 seconds. The overhand left click flashbang max duration increased from 2 seconds to 2.25 seconds. So you're actually going to flash for longer if you manage to execute these overhand team flashes, and you're going to flash for a lot less, flashing for a more individualistic peek. Now you're still going to be able to do things like throw it behind you and peek an angle. That's still going to work, but if enemies get hit by this, it's going to be a lot harder to throw it out, flash an enemy, and then swing after the fact, because enemies aren't going to be blind for very long. And let's say you blind 2 people, maybe you could kill that first person, but to spray control to a second blinded person, they're going to be unblind very, very quickly. So it is important to keep that in mind. And not in the PBE yet, but potentially to be added after the fact, the unequipped delay out of both flashes decreased from 0.6 seconds to 0.85 seconds, which means you're going to be able to whip out your weapon faster, is what this reads as. And that seems like you're going to be able to pop flash and potentially make plays yourself still. I'm going to have to wait and see how this fully feels in game, but I think the general change here is very similar to the Sky change, where now the power level is more towards trying to learn how to flash for your team and coordinate in that way and use it to take space, rather than KO playing as a pseudo duelist the majority of the time in ranked. Now, next up, we do got to talk about Reyna. I was not expecting Reyna changes anytime soon, but let's jump into them. Quote, Reyna's flash underperforms as a selfish entry tool, especially at high skill levels. This set of changes is intended to give Reyna more agency around how she decides to peek after casting Leer. Also, it should sharpen Leer as a powerful angle breaking tool against operators on maps with longer sightlines. We also felt that individual casts of the eye remain in the world for too long when the eye isn't destroyed. If Reyna is now able to make more selfish plays off her Leer, we then wanted to reduce some of the value it has when thrown for teammates. So Leer, wind up near sight effect increased from 0.6 seconds to 0.4 seconds. The range restriction on Leer is removed. That's holy shit, that's crazy. Near sight unequipped delay decreased from 0.7 to 0.5, and near sight unequipped delay set to instant. Duration decreased from 2.6 seconds to 2.0 seconds. So when you initially throw the near sight, you're gonna have a longer wind-up time, which means that it's gonna be harder to use it in the middle of combat. It's a really small change, but it is important to understand. But because of all these other buffs, the range restriction just completely removed. Even though that duration doesn't last as long, you have a very optimal moment to capitalize. And that's really what it's doing here. It's not like you can just use it, throw it, and it keeps space for a while. It's like you have to set it up and optimize the situation to use it, but when you do, the enemies are blind, they're nearsighted, and you have a small window to act as Reyna, which is all you need. This also makes Reyna a legitimate counter to ops in a very real way, and I think that this change is insane for the character. A huge buff to Reyna, and a lot of players were playing her in a more individualistic style anyways for ranked, and I think this actually aids to that even more. And we're going to see Reynas all over the place, really abusing enemies that are trying to op a long distance angle. I mean, the fact that there's no range restriction, just think Breeze with Reyna. Like, you could just completely shut down ops. And we've been in an op meta for so long with Chamber that I actually don't hate it, even though I do think that Reyna might be a bit too powerful and ranked. But I want to pass the question off to you. How do you feel about this change and why? Down below. Now, last up, we got to talk about Yoru. Now, quote, Yoru is a tricky agent as we need to balance him around his capabilities to throw flashes during his ultimate. We opted to go with a simple duration increase for blindside as we feel the tuning counterplay around his flash and clone is important to avoid excessively frustrating situations. So blindside duration increased from 1.5 seconds to 1.75 seconds. In addition to that, they've added visual updates that mean it's a lot easier to identify whether or not an enemy is full flashed or the flash is about to fade. And on top of that, they increased the window for awarding assist on flashes, nearsights, and concusses from 1 second to 3 seconds after the debuff starts to fade. For context, they said, we felt assist windows on these debuffs didn't reflect their actual duration of impact, and we want to make sure that supportive players are more often recognized and rewarded for setting up situations their teammates capitalize on. It's important to understand that this is actually all applying to not just Yoru. And then last up, they reduced the size of the hologram on body markers that show up when dead bodies are turned off, which is my biggest complaint about that setting, because it's just like so freaking hard sometimes to see enemies if they're like for some reason, their head level is right around body level of a dead body. And yeah, that's probably a good change. But all in all, let's really talk about what all these changes mean. And we'll work backwards. First off, with Yoru, a buff to his flash is a good thing. Yoru's really great when you master him according to win rate and pick rate. And I think it's a good change overall. Nothing crazy, but still a buff to Yoru, which is good. The Reyna change is freaking nuts. Like, so insane. I think Reyna is going to be so powerful. That range restriction in particular on Lear, the fact that it's removed, I don't even know what to say about that. It's so freaking strong. And then for KO and Skye, it's clear that they are trying to balance the power level of these characters to be less individualistic based and more team centered. Now, as far as what this means for these characters in ranked, I'm not entirely sure if that's going to aid them as much in ranked, because these characters are already really good in pro play with coordinated efforts. And I think that this debuffs them for ranked, where you're not going to have that cohesion and teamwork. We're going to have to wait and see on that. But ultimately, I am really interested in these changes. I'm interested to see them in action. And I want to know how you feel about them. Which change shocked you the most, and what change do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget about Lootcoin, the best way to get skins, points, and even full-fledged games. What are you waiting for? Use code GameLeap09 in the description down below for a free community bundle. Check it out right now down below.